Greetings from the Philippines to the world. We are on Facebook Live on Eagle News and Net25 TV and also on our streaming site eaglenewslive.com. Watch us on our YouTube channel at Net25 TV. I am Cesar Vallejos. Welcome to Open for Business. Join me discover the latest news and information and business around the world. Stay ahead of the curve from vision to action. MSMEs and business owners are now busy crafting their business plans for 2021. Any business leader's fear is uncertainty as we prepare for our budgets and strategic management plans for 2021. What is the future ahead of us? How bright or how bleak is our 2021? Will the business climate and the economy be okay for MSMEs in 2021? A member of the faculty of the School of Economics of UANP, advisor of the Philippine E-commerce Roadmap for 2020 to 2022, and the vice president of REID Foundation and the lead of USAID Project Deliver will share his insights on the economic outlook for 2021. Professor Ronilo Balbieran will join us. Stay tuned. Open for Business. We'll be right back.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Arsena, abangan niyo po ako and the rest of the Barkada and your favorite OPM artists on Letters and Music. Prime time na mula Monday to Friday, 8 p.m. only on Net25. See you!
Open for Business is back, and with me is Professor Ronilo Balbieran, economist and professor at the University of Asia and the Pacific, also called as Prof. Ronnie. Prof. Ronnie, magandang araw po sa inyo.
Magandang araw din po, Sir Cesar.
Prof. Ronnie, I was watching the forum of the Philippine Marketing Association, and what really struck me there during that discussion of that you presented was your super summary of the Philippine economy. I specifically remember you said before COVID-19 we were okay. During COVID-19, we are okay, but trying to be okay. And after COVID-19, we will be okay and more okay, but with a different okay. Prof. Ronnie, can you expound more on this this very layman description, this different types of okays of the Philippine economy before, during, and after COVID-19?
I think our viewers would be surprised that the okay is actually from the two root words, all correct. So onomatopoeic yun. It sounds like O tsaka K. Kaya all correct. So, and when I said that before COVID-19, we were okay and more okay than other countries. If you read the technical reports of World Bank and IMF in relation to the state of the global economy since the global recession, laging nasa shaky recovery ang countries, especially the more advanced countries like the US, countries in Europe, Japan. Laging shaky recovery yun. Parang mag-grow sila, tapos hindi. But in the Philippines, that is not the case. So since 2011 up to 2019, we were really growing at more than 6% more than 10 years, so consecutive. So we were okay. We're not doing fantastic as our resources will support our growth. But again, ang mga Pilipino okay na sa okay. So at 6.6% average in the last 10 years, that is already a relatively high growth.
With that high growth, Prof. Ronnie, what were the key drivers? Okay, you said we have that 6.6 average and tuloy-tuloy yun, 10 years. And what were the key drivers of that growth so far?
It's a combination, Sir Cesar, of the usual driver of our growth. So for the last 70 years, our key driver talaga is domestic consumption. Because we have continuous growth in population, and our population is really driven by mga 20s to 30s. In fact, ang average age natin is 23 years old. So medyo malapit din tayo doon, Sir Cesar.
Nahalata ko nga.
So ang implication nun sa economics is these are high spenders, no? So they tend to max out their budget, no? So medyo parang wala silang masyadong pakialam sa future. So I'm not saying it's good, but from the point of view of an economy, the spending is really the starting point of all economic activities. That's what we call technically the market. So domestic consumption has been providing at least the base of 5%. So as you know, in the last 70 years, our economy grew by 5% average. And so whatever happened to the world economy, we were just consuming everything that we produce at 5%. So kaya kahit anong mangyari sa global economy, bumaba yung exports natin, so we will consume what we produce. So domestic economy. Pero number two, syempre, we were towards the 1990s, 2000. So we were able to figure out a way of earning more money, additional income from abroad. And this is where we have our OFWs. And then number two, we started promoting our tourism. So talagang it's a steady climb of tourism activity since the 2000s. So, and in fact, in the last 10 years, we were really heavily driven by domestic tourism. Of course, with growing foreign tourists, but ang talagang makikita nyo, yung magnitude of increase, siguro some 10 years ago, mga 10 to 15 million lang ang domestic tourists natin, yung mga Filipinos going around the country. But prior to COVID, we were already hitting more than 100 million na domestic tourists sa Philippines. And what's financing that mobility, that travel and leisure? It's actually the extra money that we're getting from abroad. So pag nagsama mo yon, yung power of our domestic consumption together with the power of extra income. So all the industries will actually be pulled with it. Kasi all of a sudden, yung manufacturing natin, which is predominantly food manufacturing, so nag-grow, sumipa yun. Akala natin wala na tayong pag-asa doon sa pag-recover ng manufacturing. But it heavily pulled our manufacturing. And you know, manufacturing has one of the highest multipliers in terms of income and employment. And so may another round of multiplying effect for the economy, because pag nagma-manufacture ka, it has a lot of suppliers, diba? A lot of MSMEs that actually supply to those manufacturers. So it's one whole chain of suppliers and buyers. And that's why kung makikita natin yung chart of all the industries in the Philippines, almost everybody was actually hitting more than 6%, more than 8%. And because of that, ano yung panibagong nangyari? Because economic activities were actually shooting up. Construction is a natural consequence because construction is long-term in nature. Hindi naman magpapagawa yung mga MSMEs ng mga additional stores, additional factories, additional employment kung hindi nila nakita na there is an expansion of economic activities. And that triggered private investments. Kaya nag-trigger yung, nakita mo yung construction. In fact, in the last 10 years, construction among all businesses generated the highest average annual growth at more than 10%. Kasi it is a reflection of our bet on the future. Kasi nga, nakita natin na, uy, may market tayo, may bebentahan tayo dito sa Pilipinas. Number 2, may additional income ang mga Pilipino. And therefore, the banking sector is very much alive. We will have access to this money. And therefore, let's bet on the future. Let's construct. So in the last 10 years, construction really had the time of its life at more than. So yun po yung dynamics ng ating yun yung dynamics ng economy po natin, ano. So
professor, ang ganda, 'di ba? You said for the last 10 years. So we had this domestic consumption that's really growing with OFWs. We have a booming tourism sector, and of course the private investments and also construction. During COVID-19, eto na. So everyone didn't expect to have, and this is not only the Philippines, siyempre, di ba? It's global. What do you mean by saying we are not okay, but we are trying to be okay?
So immediately kasi, for the viewers' information, we are not, the Philippine economy was shielded from any global economic disasters. So, in the last 70 years, kung makikita niyo yung plot of our economic growth, GDP growth, walang kinalaman yung mga global economic events doon sa ating plot. So, what was actually happening there? So, what's happening there is yung EDSA, yung pinakamadugo. So, it was actually inflicted by ourselves. So, yung ating sariling internal politics. And then natural disasters in 1991 plus kudeta. So 1998 may El Nino. Sabi nila Asian financial crisis yung 1998, but it's actually driven by El Nino. And then in the middle of the global recession, nakikita niyo yung global recession natin. Everybody was expecting us to be down at -2, -3, but it never really materialized yung projections ng other countries for our GDP growth. But for the first time sa COVID, nag-negative tayo. In fact, second quarter, -16. Grabe yung dugo na yun. So, but what really happened there? So, it's not so much of what happened to the economy of the world affecting the Philippine economy. What happened there is that yung the source of our economic growth, which is consumption, and yung ating mobility. So para kasi tayong mga anong tawag natin sa Pilipino, mga laging mga gala. Okay, let's meet. Yeah, okay, let's meet. Let's have coffee. Let's have lunch.
That's right.
Let's hang out tayo lahat ganyan. That's a very huge portion of our economy. 73% of our economy is personal consumption. And 40% of that is actually food and non-alcoholic beverages. Tapos another 15% pag samasamahin mo yung recreation and culture, hotels and restaurants, so mga culture related, tapos travel and transportation. So tapos yung yung pinakamalaki pa after food is miscellaneous. Ano yung miscellaneous? Yun yung mga anik-anik, yung mga lipstick, pabango.
Okay.
Ganyan. So I mean, in fact, tingnan niyo yung COVID. Yung COVID, everything, all the consumption items went negative except for 3 items.
And those are?
Food and non-alcoholic beverages, communication, tsaka miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous pa rin. Hindi. Baka, pero yung miscellaneous kasama na yung alcohol doon. Di ba? Kasama na yung... bukod pa yun. So what are those miscellaneous? What are those miscellaneous items?
In the order of the budget of Filipino families, food and non-alcoholic beverages, ano yung second largest? So 40% yun 42% to be exact. Second largest is actually miscellaneous. Akala mo parang others na lang yun. Pero second largest higher than utilities, higher than travel and transport, higher than health, higher than education. Lahat yan, ang second highest is actually miscellaneous. And you can see that, I mean, even in this pandemic, tuwan-tuwa yung iba kasi magagamit nila yung mga lipstick, mga ganyan nila sa Zoom. Kasi when they go out, they cannot, you know? So naka-face mask sila, so good luck sa mga lipstick nila. So yung mga babae ngayon, tuwan-tuwa, nagagamit nila iba't ibang shades ng lipstick, eyebrows, etc. So what I'm saying is that we were not okay because we were strapped, di ba? So we were locked down sa mga bahay natin. And that's a huge portion that was actually driving our economy. It was driving our food consumption, our tourism, domestic tourism. That will actually triggered a lot of economic activities. Lahat ng yun, parang ikinulong natin. And therefore, the circulation of income in the economy cannot actually work. And therefore, may multiplier effect. Kung may multiplier effect siya nung last 10 years growing, may multiplier effect din siya in shrinking the economy. Shrink the economy in no time. So,
but Prof. Ronnie, sorry, I have to cut you there. Yes. What interests me and what was striking is what you said earlier. Sabi mo, the growth of the Philippine economy is not necessarily affected by what's happening outside the Philippines. So even the slowdown in the world economy does not necessarily affect the Philippine economy. And you mentioned several instances lang na these are all brought about by domestic events and happenings, including EDSA, including maybe the changes in government, administration, or disasters. Yun. Pero, and that is because I think, as you also mentioned, the domestic consumption is really the one that keeps it afloat, keeps it thriving. Pero, ano yung mga industriya naman, which is outside the Philippines, that's really affecting the Philippine economy? Because, of course, di ba, with the Philippine exports, malakas din tayo doon. What are the industries or the products or services na naaapektuhan naman because of the relationships with, of course, with ASEAN and with the global market? Ano kung hindi man siya nakakaapekto ng matindi sa kabuuan, what are these industries that are heavily affected by what's happening in the global market?
Well, definitely, yung mga pinaka-obvious dyan, yung lahat ng related sa transportation and travel. So as we know, the air transport, the global air transport sector is bleeding. So talagang we are really praying for that particular sector. Talagang massive layoffs, shutdowns na ng ibang mga airline companies. So that's a huge factor because it drives both mobility of people and cargo. So the profitability of the airline company and their activities really drive logistics, both of people and of goods. So malaking tama 'yon, kaya talagang we've seen shrinking in international trade because of that. So kasi malaki talaga yung tama. So yung second, and dahil nga yun magkatugma yan, transportation and travel, and of course yung tourism. So kasi yung tourism mo driven yan by the transportation sector. So yung next one mo would be yung manufacturing supply chain mo. So because especially, 'di ba, in the first few months of COVID, may tinatawag na mga essential goods. So if you're not part of it, so magtiis ka. So you cannot be engaged in the production. You will not be allowed to resume your production. So therefore, yung mga exporters natin who are not producing essential goods were heavily affected. So only those initially yung mga nagpo-produce lang ng food, and not even, di ba? Not all na nagpo-produce lang. So you'll have to secure the IATF ID, etc. So
Yeah.
yung dikit-dikit na yon, yung manufacturing, tapos isasama mo diyan yung logistics, so water, air transport, yung courier services. So lahat po 'yon apektuhan, both globally and globally and domestically. So kasi katulad din doon, hindi rin tayo makapag-export, hindi rin tayo makapag-import ng maraming raw materials because of the lockdowns in several ports, airports. So di ba nung initial natin, pati yung mga PPEs natin, so we've had challenges in the congestion in our ports importing all these raw materials. And if you're dealing with food manufacturing, baka nabulok na yon. So yun po yung mga I think our viewers will agree, especially those who are involved in a lot of manufacturing, a lot of logistics services, lahat ng mga tourism-related services, lahat ng yan naapektuhan.
Professor Ronnie, what is also interesting in what you mentioned earlier was that you used the term shield. Parang the Philippine economy was somehow shielded from this devastating global recession, slowdown. Ano bang meron sa Pilipinas? Why is it shielded by from the global recession? Is it about what people say as the soft skills natin? Is it although of course you said about the population, it's a very young population, very young market. We have a very good and young labor force, but is it about our resilience? Is it about sanay na ba tayo sa pandemya? 'Di ba? Sanay na tayo sa disaster, sa bagyo, 'di ba? In other countries, pag konting baha lang, 'di ba? When they post it on Instagram, baha na ba 'yun sa kanila? Ang baha natin hanggang liig. But in your description, what is it that what's in the Philippines that somehow makes our the economy resilient?
If you will, I would just like to introduce two sets of concepts. So one is the circular flow of income. So you only need to remember 4 words for you to actually analyze all economies in the world. So spending, production, employment, income.
Okay.
So SPEI, spending, production, employment, income, and then the income will return back to spending. Okay, so para maintindihan natin how is the dynamics of an economy, and then multiplying its effects throughout all the components of the economy. So spending, and then when there's spending, there will be production because the businesses will produce what is being demanded. Labo naman na mag-demand sila, mag-produce yung mga producers na imagine demand. So dapat actual demand yan. So production. And production can only happen if there's additional employment. So otherwise, we are talking about digital transformation, but at the same time, kailangan mo pa rin ng mga IT professionals doon. So employment. And then employment will lead to income. And income will lead to purchasing power that will lead to spending. So it's a cycle. So cycle po yan, paikot-ikot lang. So in the words of Sarah Geronimo, ikot-ikot. So now, given that is the engine of any economy, what is now in the Philippines? So, so I think there are many, but I would like our viewers to remember only 3 things. Okay? For that particular cycle, yung circular flow of income, to move fast, to circulate as fast and expand as fast. So 3 things. People, emotion, and cash. So sa Tagalog, tao, emosyon, at saka cash. Yung 3 things na yun, those 3 things will determine how much spending will happen in a country. Take out or slow down one of them, it will have high implications on the cycle because the spending will be low. Reduce the number of people, reduce the emotion, or reduce the cash, they will all point towards reduction of spending and therefore reduction of production, reduction of employment, reduction of income, and tuloy-tuloy na negative cycle or shrinkage of the economy. So sa Philippines, the questions are, marami ba tayong tao? Nagrereklamo na yung mga ibang bansa sa sobra naming tao. Diba? So, maapaw. So, sa kanila, the United Nations Development Program reported last year, they declared the problem of the world is a shrinking population. So, that's the problem. Whereas the other analysts are saying, we are getting overpopulated. The problem being recognized now, there will be a peak of population which is 10.9 billion. Yun na yun. Because we are all aging and the women are not giving birth to babies. The problem of the world right now, more than 2/3 of the world are not giving birth to as many babies. Each woman must give birth to 2.1 babies. That's the average. That's what we call in economics and the study of population, the replacement ratio. Bakit? Kasi the woman must give birth to 2 children that will actually replace her and her husband. Kaya dapat 2. That's a replacement ratio. Ibig sabihin, zero growth ng population yun.
Pero Professor, problema ba natin sa Pilipinas yan? Parang, di ba, parang when you go to some areas in some streets, parang may mga factory tayo ng mga bata, Professor.
Hindi natin problema yan. Ang problema natin is, anong problema natin? Yung third part, yung cash. Why? Because cash is a function of your capacity, of your productivity, of your education. So we are not, we have a huge problem on our education. Tapos ngayon, matcha-challenge pa of this pandemic. So we really need to have that additional cash. Fortunately, yung lack of cash na yon are actually being addressed by our dependence on OFW remittances. So we are the country with the largest net additional income from abroad at more than 10%. So no country in the world receives double-digit percentage of GDP in terms of net additional income from abroad. When we say net, in, so OFWs, etc., and out, yung mga foreigners dito are also sending back to their home countries. Ang net po na yan ay more than 10% of our national income or the GDP, the domestic income.
And then you said no other country in the world has the highest net additional income.
Yes. Tayo lang may double digits. The rest, 1%, 2%, 3% of their GDP. That's why analysts around outside the Philippines only talk about GDP. Kasi wala naman talaga silang pinag-uusapang net additional income. In the whole Southeast Asia, we're the only one with that particular amount. The rest are either zero or negative.
So if they are if they are talking about GDP, tayo GDP and net additional income, or is there an economic term that adds up to the net additional income?
Before it was called GNP, Gross National Product.
Okay.
And then I think around 5 years ago they renamed it as Gross National Income. Kasi
GNI.
Kasi hindi naman pala product yun. I mean, hindi naman yung mga inaalagaan ng ating mga nurse sa Amerika yung pinapadala nila eh. Ang pinapadala nila yung income nila. So kaya gross national, I mean, joke lang yun. Pero parang ganun ko siya iniisip na yung mga Filipinos producing canned goods somewhere in outside the country, hindi naman nila pinapadala yung product nila dito. Ang pinapadala nila are actually their income. So they World Bank and IMF revised it to be called gross national income, which is a combination of GDP saka net additional income from abroad. So Professor, ang laki nun sa atin.
Yeah, Professor, this is a very interesting discussion, but we have to pause for these reminders. Open for Business. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced, eagle news, because we live in interesting times.
Open for Business is back, and still with me is Professor Ronilo Balbieran, economist of the University of Asia and the Pacific. Professor Ron, we were talking about people, emotion, and cash. Ang problema ng Pilipinas, cash. So, marami na tayong tao. Pero gusto kong mabalikan yung emotion. So how do you reduce, or what specifically, what is it that you mean when you say emotion? Again, is this the resilience of the Filipinos? Is it our yung plug nga ng bayanihan, we have to fight, di ba? We have to continue to fight. Is this the bayanihan spirit that you are talking about? Is this the resilience of the Filipino? Is this the strong will of the Filipino? Is this our faith as a Filipino nation?
All of the above, the answer is. So, I think John Maynard Keynes, the father of macroeconomics, termed this thing called animal spirit. What is animal spirit? Animal spirit is the confidence and optimism of people to spend. So again, yun natin yung spending, production, employment, income, spending. So the spending is driven by your spirit. So, and technically called animal spirit in the words of Katy Perry, roar. Parang gano'n. So, kailangan may ganong roar. Otherwise, it is unthinkable for people to be just buying things without emotion. And that's why, di ba, yung mga marketers, advertisers, salesmen, it's all about appealing to the emotion. And so, the Philippines is filled with that, yung emotion. And I think both in a bad way and in a good way. So what's driving our emotion, and specifically driving our confidence to spend? More than anything else, more than our love for telenovela and mga drama, I think what's important there is we are a very religious nation. So whatever is our religion, but we pray to God, and because of that faith in God. But pag may faith, hope, and love, ang direct translation of economics, of religion to economics, is spending. So kasi when you have faith, hope, and love, you will have that confidence that everything will be alright, that God is in control, and therefore, ang translation nan, pupunta ka sa cellphone mo, okay naman pala. So, bili muna ako dito, mag-order muna ako. Order muna ako ng food, order muna ako ng mga pampatuwa, okay, mga ganon. So when you have emotion, whether you're mad or you're happy, you spend. That's why yung lahat ng mga nangyayari in the last 2 days, 3 days, I'm so happy. Why? Because the country now is filled with emotion, whether good or bad. I'm sure spending is on the rise because of this emotion. So I think we are a very emotional. The part of it is driven by our religion, faith in God, and then number 2, it is driven also by our age. You cannot just emote kung 90 years old ka. But 23 years old, average age of the country, we know that we are driven by hormones. Diba? And that will drive our economy, especially when we have the vaccine. These hormones will kick in no time, and spending will be triggered in no time.
Wow, this is very interesting, Professor. But speaking of the events that happened, in the past 3 days, ito bang mga nangyayari na ito, do you think this will somehow impact on the Philippine economy? I know that they're talking about the budget for 2021 already, but sabi mo nga, ang mga nangyayari ang nakakaapekto sa ekonomiya natin, kagagawan din natin. These are a lot of, these are domestic events and happenings. But do you think, this, somehow political struggles, do you think this will impact pa on the outlook of the Philippine economy next year?
I'm not a political scientist, but taking a look at it from the point of view of our framework that we were talking about, I'm taking a look at actual spending. That's why the president is very concerned about whatever you do there, just make sure that there's budget.
Ipasa mo. Oo.
Pasa niyo yung budget. Yeah. Why? Because it happened in 2019. So in 2018, nagkagulo sila doon, di sila nagkasundo because the Philippines is so rich, the Philippines has so much tax collection, and everybody's trying to battle it out in terms of their budget in their districts, etc., etc. But the problem is that budget was never spent for 3.5 months in 2019. And what was the result? It was a huge reduction in our GDP growth.
Exactly. By how much nga ulit?
Yeah.
By how much?
Yung supposedly ang growth natin, we were already growing at 6.6% na average. So we were supposed to grow that. Pero parang bumaba lang tayo to the level of 5%.
Yeah, okay.
Still high. But, for every percent of that GDP means millions of employment. So we could have grown our economy in 2019. We could have been in a much, much better position to face COVID kung yung 2019 na yon hindi na-delay yung budget. Now,
which the president wants to budget.
Na-delay natin yung budget ng 2019, nag-reduce yung GDP natin, affected some of our employment numbers. Walang COVID yun. This time, we badly need national spending. It will be a national crime. It is a massacre. It is an economic massacre if the budget is not passed on time in the middle of pandemic.
Tama.
That's a national economic massacre.
I see, tama. Now, speaking of budget, which is so far, one of the meats of our discussion, Professor, is this. This is the time where SMEs, CEOs, owners of small businesses craft their business plans for 2021. This is the time that they do strategic planning and create budgets for 2021. Based on these economic considerations, what are the must-dos, or what are the information that they needed to consider? Off-cam, we were talking about pivoting, or we were talking about digital transformation, we were talking about strategies on how they will stay afloat, especially the MSMEs. Sila ba talagang will they just forget their business plans in the past and then face the new normal? What to you is the new normal in terms of business planning, considering the economic condition, considering the Philippine economic activities for 2021?
Good question. No? So, well, I've written an article very recently, and I entitled it "Chain of Changes and Change of Chains."
Wow.
So it's a chain of changes. So we have encountered a lot of changes. It is a series. So lockdowns, mobility crisis, health crisis. So it's really a chain of changes. So it's up to us to change the chains. So yung ating value chain at ating supply chain, and the most important thing that we have to accept right now is that everything must go digital. So digital transformation. So, and it's such a broad broad phrase, but it only means that whatever is there in the internet, we should take advantage of it. So it's very surprising, for example, na yung business mo wala pa doon sa Google Map. So and it's for free. So there are a lot of things available there for free. Having your email, your business email, mura lang naman yun, $3 to $5 for you to have a corporate email. Having your business on the map, availing of very cheap logistics services. So nagko-compete na nga sila for our attention. So like the likes of QuadX and sina LBC. So all of them are transforming digital as well. So we do not. I guess my message for you is you don't have to do it alone, because everybody is trying to help each other. Again, sabi nga ni Sir Cesar, yung kahit yung Congress ni-recognize yung bayanihan, the bayanihan spirit. So there are a lot of free or very cheap services for you to actually go digital. And there are a lot of mga webinars, especially, of course, ang bias ko ay yung the DTI E-commerce office sa Facebook at saka sa YouTube. Lahat na po yun free. Tapos meron po ngayong ongoing, may I promote yung sa Philippine Training Center. It's also for free. Go to their Facebook page. There will be a series of supply chain and logistics lectures for MSMEs, so that you will really understand how this pandemic is really affecting our supply chain. Lahat na yun, kung paano you conduct business, deliveries, payments. So nandiyan na po lahat yan. So it's important that we take advantage of all these services and lectures. But I think tatawid ko, so that's your process. So digitalize your process. But from my senior advisors din, yung mga economists na nire-research ko, maraming mga advice. But I would like to summarize them into 3 things din. So para hindi nyo na masyadong aaralin yung mga heavy advice nila. So I think 3H naman, yung 3H each I will leave to you so that you can take advantage of the transforming economic environment of the Philippines. So because again, we were okay, we are not okay, but we're trying to be okay. But this time we will be okay, but a different okay. So ano yon, nagta-transform na po ng mabilis ang profile of consumption habits of Filipinos. So tatlong H. So yung unang H ay everything about the home will kick in. So ano yun? Siyempre yung food. Lahat ng mga food na yan. Tsaka yung e-commerce. So at combination niya ng food and e-commerce and miscellaneous. Ano yung pati yung mga miscellaneous, pati yung mga alahas mo, pati yung mga accessories, jewelries, etc. I mean, I'm not saying that you save, you spend according to your resources and priorities. And of course, it's not bad to just enjoy. So home. So lahat, pati home entertainment. Kaya nga sikat na sikat ngayon sa mga YouTube tsaka Facebook yung mga nagpa-prank lang sila sa mga kapatid nila, sa nanay nila. And then they are getting a lot, 20,000, 100,000, 200,000 from Facebook and YouTube.
Exactly.
Wow, people are getting rich just by the emotions, diba? So home, lahat ng home. And then kaya pati yung mga home repairs, so mga home accessories, we see a lot of increase in the purchases, lahat ng mga. Kaya I was in watching a webinar with Home Depot tsaka Wilcon. So yung sales nila are actually doing incredibly well because all of a sudden we have time. We have time to decorate our home.
That's right.
Ang ating office. So everything about the home. So e-commerce and home repairs, home decoration. Yan. So that's one. Number 2, health. So all of a sudden, we are now conscious of our health, especially that we cannot go out and exercise. We now are conscious of our diet, etc. So health. And then number 3, hangouts. So hangouts, meaning even if we cannot go out, we are now starting to realize how important, how valuable is physical connectivity is. Diba? So yung to be with a person, to be with your loved one physically has no equivalent.
That's right.
And therefore, as we delay going out of our house, the more we long for them. So yun yung 3 H's that I think which are important in our preparation for our 2021.
Now, with the 3 H's, do you think this is also a framework where MSMEs can really develop their products and services? Kasi, like for example, I noticed with some of my interviews with CEOs, they're thinking of yung dating hindi naman nagsiserve ng non-essential, ginawa niyang essential. So like before naman, essential lang siya. Sige, mukhang pwedeng itong non-essential. So there is a shift of product lines and services. So do you think this is a good framework where MSMEs or even the micro enterprise owner, like kahit lang yung gumagawa ng kakanin o kaya ng face mask, is this some sort of a guide where they think it can help them grow their business?
Yes, and definitely. And I've seen a lot of small businesses or kahit mga entrepreneur who've gone into this craze of plantita and plantito.
Yes.
Di ba?
That's right.
Because, wala ka lang magawa sa bahay mo. So, you want to decorate your house. So, tinan nyo naman yung dalawa kong halaman dyan. So, produkto yan ng aking asawa. Plantita din. So, all of a sudden, there's this huge market for redecorating your house with all these plants. And pinuwi mo naman yung acceleration of prices in plants, di ba? Lalagyan mo lang ng magandang base, magandang siguro mug or something like that. So our creativity is really being pushed to the limit in relation to accessing these new trends. So I think hindi naman po ako entrepreneur, so wag po hindi porke nakanekta ako mayaman ako. So it would be the entrepreneurs, the creative spirit of our MSMEs to really figure it out. And I'm surprised with the ideas going around. So yung iba, yung mga kung ano-anong mga toys para doon sa mga kids nila, because the kids cannot go out, especially kung ano ka. So all these mga small playgrounds inside the house, they're installing. So I have a friend, yun ang kanyang naging bagong business. So sinara niya yung isang business niya. Ito yung focus na yun. Laki-laki na ng mga ino-order sa kanya na especially ngayon because of COVID, mayroong tinatawag ngayon na COVID babies.
Yes.
So people are because women are getting pregnant, as you know, so because of being locked down, and therefore I have so many friends who are pregnant right now and already preparing for the baby. So yun yung nagiging another market. So home and health combination po yan. And I think at this point then, this is a time actually while we still have that, we don't have the vaccine. It's a time for MSMEs to really think about how to take advantage naman yung parating, which is the hangout industries. So how can you facilitate a warmer environment for your coffee shop or for your restaurant or for your small inn? Kung nandoon kayo sa mga areas na heavy on tourism like Palawan, Cebu, Siargao, Bohol, etc. Small or big players should already prepare for this opportunity ng acceleration or recovery of the hangout sector.
And as you mentioned, Professor Ronnie, this is also an opportunity for entrepreneurs to also look at the possibilities for hangouts when they open and when they bounce back, to still integrate the health and safety protocols. A lot of designs now of restaurants come out from the internet where they integrate. Kung dati uso yung open, di ba? Dati pala may cubicles, and then they removed all the barriers, but now the barriers are back, to ensure that we don't spread the virus. We are running out of time, Professor Ron, but I hope also that we can talk about the impact of all these things in education, because I know that you are also a professor, and there's a lot of impact of this COVID-19 to education, especially online education. But we hope to have you again, Professor Ronnie, some other time. Your last message to entrepreneurs as they try to bounce back, and as we mentioned during our introduction, what are those things that they should really remember as they craft their business plans, as they craft their strategic business plans to prepare for the growth of their businesses in 2021?
Okay, so to our dear viewers, mga nagdinegosyo, you're trying to make ends meet, or trying to expand, or trying to make your business survive. So don't worry. All the analysis na available out there are saying this is just temporary. And the good news is this is a natural pandemic. What is actually more dangerous is a structural crisis. Ano yung structural crisis? It was the crisis that was actually happened in 2009. And that crisis was actually brought about by the greed of people. So yung global recession, yung financial crisis, it was brought about by the greed of the people taking advantage of abusing smaller players. Kaya it took us more than 10 years to recover, and then magre-recover na yung world economy. Then the pandemic happened. But this kind of pandemic, ang consensus is yung mga pandemic na ganito, na natural disaster, is always temporary. So maximum na siguro yung 2 years. And in fact, last night I was actually listening to the news. So may recent report si IMF and saying their forecast of the global economy next year is not as bad as their forecast last June. So meaning there are already good signs that the economy globally is now about to recover. So they're already seeing signs. So they are revising their forecast towards better numbers. So from the part of the Philippine economy, so I mentioned, population, emotion, and cash. And we have a lot of them. We're oozing with population. We have all these COVID babies about to be born. And then you have all these emotions being sustained by what's happening around us. So just be amazed and continue believing that we'll be all right. And of course, we have cash. We have the highest net additional income from abroad. Before, nagkaroon tayo ng scare. But in June, July, we've seen that OFW remittances, just like our spirit, is resilient. So nag-back to positive growth rates na rin yung ating OFW remittances, meaning even in the time of pandemic, the people, the world will not lay off as many Filipinos. They need Filipinos in their recoveries in their own countries. The Filipinos will be the last type of people who you will fire. So kasi because of our resilience in this time of trouble, nasa ibang bansa pa tayo at kumikita tayo ng mas malaki. So there's no point being fired, and therefore we have seen the sign that we are indeed resilient in terms of spirit and in terms of cash. So So therefore, I still believe that the Philippine economy and the Filipinos are destined for global economic leadership. Even the economist.com said that we will be one of the top countries who will survive this pandemic among all countries in the world. We're number 6 in terms of recovering from this pandemic because of the amount of people and cash that we have. Add to that emotion. And so, therefore, we pray together that our national government, including our Congress, be able to pass the national budget on time, because with that budget is the strong stimulus, the strong catalyst to make sure that these resources that we have, people, emotion, and cash, will be reactivated in terms of catalyzing our economic activity so that we can continue recovering as one. So, and with that, I pray that we will all recover from this challenge and crisis.
Wow, that is a very positive way to end this conversation with Professor Ronilo Balbieran, economist and professor of the University of Asia and the Pacific. Open for Business will be back. Stay tuned. Open for Business is back, and our term of the week is from Investopedia. Our term of the week is GDP, or Gross Domestic Product. Gross Domestic Product is the total monetary or market value of all the finished goods and services produced within a country's borders in a specific time period. As a broad measure of overall domestic production, it functions as a comprehensive scorecard of a given country's economic health. Though GDP is typically calculated on an annual basis, it is also sometimes calculated on a quarterly basis. The calculation of the country's GDP encompasses all private and public consumption, government outlays, investments, additions to private inventories, paid-in construction costs, and the foreign balance of trade. And our word of the week is from Peter Bernstein. He said, "The constant lesson of history is the dominant role played by surprise. Just when we are most comfortable with an environment and come to believe we finally understand it, the ground shifts under our feet." Thank you for watching Open for Business. Join us again in the next episodes of Open for Business for more insights from CEOs, thought leaders, industry experts, and SMEs promoting business development in the Philippines. See you again every Saturday and Sunday here in Open for Business, where we discuss business information, deliver the latest business news to keep you informed and open for business, and be ahead of the curve from vision to action. You're on Facebook Live on Eagle News and Net25 TV, and you can watch us again in the video section of the Eagle News and Net25 Facebook pages and on eaglenewslive.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Net25 TV. Thank you again for watching for Open for Business. This is Cesar Vallejos. We live in interesting times. Have a great day.
Passengers here are in for a ride.